If you have been to any of this series, in this series of webinars with Jill, you already know who she is, so I won't belabor the point with introducing her again. But she is an HR consultant and focuses on management and leadership in the organization. This is number 4 of her 5-part series, so you're 80% of the way done in the series today. And again, thank you for joining us. Many of you already know who SCORE is, so I'll just very briefly again say that SCORE is your resource for if you are a small business owner or an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow your business or start a business or thinking about a business, please know that we have lots and lots of opportunity. Everything is free to you as a mentee. Our mentors are experienced and skilled entrepreneurs, small business owners. Many of them have retired, but they have been there, done that, and would love to be able to help you. So we also give these webinars that you're on today. We have a large library of online resources too that can help you to build your business. If you want to get in touch with Utah SCORE, here's our contact information. We would love to bring you on as a mentee if you're interested. And if you know anyone that would be a great mentor part-time, please let them know that we are always looking for great mentors. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jill again. Again, if you've been in this series, you know who Jill is, and all of her bites of wisdom in our half-hour series. This has been fantastic. So Jill, I will turn it over to you and stop sharing my screen.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. Let me get my screen pulled up here. All right. Can everyone see that screen okay? Whoops. Okay. Did that come through okay for you? Okay, awesome. Let me try. Every time I try and see what I'm sharing, but it's always really, let me see if this. Okay, perfect. This is going to be much better. I can now. Okay, perfect. Is that still working for everyone? Are we still good to go? Okay, awesome. I just was having trouble seeing the view, not on my second screen. Well, perfect. Without further ado, let's just dive right in. We're in that 5 series, as Jenny noted. We're in number 4 of the 5 parts. So let's dive right in. So as a quick intro, I know we had talked about it before, but sometimes, sometimes people wonder, well, who is this person? Who is sharing this information with me? I've been in HR now for 23 years and just really enjoy just everything about HR, and have found topics like today, emotional intelligence, all these things really fold into this topic of how to be a marvelous manager. But really, my life's work is to help organizations avoid sticky situations, which are those situations that just put us in not ideal spots. So that's what we're going to talk about today is emotional intelligence. So to kind of quickly know where we've been and kind of where we're going here, is that we started with a module on how to communicate better, and hope you were there and learned something from that. And then we went on to how to build relationships and trust as a manager. And then last week, and if you see me looking to the side, I'm just referring to my slides here, we talked about how to provide frequent and effective feedback, which was a really, I think, popular one. And hey, if we're honest, that's the thing most of us struggle with. And so today, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about emotional intelligence skills. And as I like to always say, when we dive into these sessions, my commitment to you, back referring to the third training we had about trust, is that I commit to you'll be out of here no later than 1:30 if you're in Mountain Time Zone. We might even be finishing up a little early. I've just got some key things to share with you today, which leads me to, if I can ask you, just be open to learning one thing today and even be open to implementing one thing you learn in the next couple of weeks. So let's dive right in. So marvelous managers work on their emotional intelligence skills. So emotional intelligence is often called the other intelligence. And does anyone know something really interesting about IQ versus emotional intelligence? So the different kinds of intelligence? Something I found really interesting is your IQ, you're pretty much got what you got when you're born. It doesn't change a whole lot throughout your life. Your emotional intelligence can actually have a big change if you work on your emotional intelligence skills. You can actually grow those skills pretty significantly throughout your life. So, hey, if we have all this power over our ability to be better as marvelous managers, if we work on this skill, we're just going to be better managers. Okay, so how emotional intelligence makes everything better and how it really ties into everything we've learned so far. So it ties into communication. It makes you more thoughtful in your communication. You're not giving knee jerk reactions to people. You're not yelling. You're not getting angry. It helps with trust. Managers with good emotional intelligence skills, or even those managers that are aware that they need to work on them and kind of, hey, look, my lifetime work is emotional intelligence. I'm always working on how I can better manage my triggers, which we're going to go into here in a minute. But when you work on your skills and you're commit to be a lifelong learner, you're going to build trust with others. Kind of going back to communication, they know what they're going to get from you. They feel psychologically safe with you, meaning they're not worried the light fixture is going to fall down, but they feel safe, like in a good headspace when they're with you as their manager, because they know you're not going to fly off the handle or have a knee jerk reaction. And last week's module on feedback. Building your emotional intelligence skills makes others feel safe with you, making the other person more receptive to feedback, which is such a cool part of all this. Feedback is hard. If you have trust, again, all these lessons have built on one another. If you have trust with your team and you build your emotional intelligence skills, giving feedback is going to be, you're going to transform the way you give feedback. Now, you might see in this first slide, you're going to see this on all the slides, these two kind of yucky looking jars. So the one on the left side of the screen is basically just like sediment from some sort of river or lake bottom or something, and it's all shooken up. And you see how you can't see through it. It's really brown. I mean, you just can't see anything through it. That's how most of us live our days. We're all shooken up. There's so much in our head with work and personal life, and we can't even like see, as for lack of a better term, we can't see clearly. We don't process the way we want to. We're very reactive. But you see the jar on the right, even though it still looks a little gross, it's when water settles, like yucky brown water that settles from like a river, you'll see it starts getting clear. And if you work on your emotional intelligence skills, you're going to start having more clarity. You're going to be more productive. You're going to have better relationships. As you see on the slide, you're going to communicate better. You're going to build trust better when you slow down and work on these skills. So you're going to see these in a lot of the slides. So there's a lot that goes into emotional intelligence. In 30 minutes, we can't go into all the pieces. The first two keys of emotional intelligence, some of you may know, this might be new to some, self-awareness and self-regulation. The others are empathy and interpersonal skills, which again, we're not going to have time to go into today. I do a full training on these and we really go into depth. But these first two are going to be game changers with your emotional intelligence if you're willing to look at it. So, self awareness is simply being aware of your triggers, knowing what really sets us off, what triggers us. The word trigger, and most people know, oh, yeah, that triggers me, whether it's a coworker or your family or kids, something triggers us. I know what mine are. And so also self-awareness entails noticing how we typically react when a trigger presents. So say one of our triggers is being interrupted, at work and someone walks in, maybe one of your employees walks in or sends you a text and says, "Oh, I need this," or they call you in your middle of a project. That could be one of your triggers. So notice what happens when you get triggered. Like, "Oh, I feel really frustrated and annoyed and I just want to like snap at them." Just notice emotions are not bad. I also want to clarify that. Whether you get angry, you get quiet, whatever, there's no bad emotion. There's the way we react with that emotion can be harmful, but the emotions themselves, sadness, fear, anger, frustration, none of those are bad. They just are. Emotions just are. It's how we manage them. So self-awareness is also acknowledging our strengths and also our weaknesses. It's easy to say, oh, yes, we're great at this, we're great at this. And also just knowing this is a trigger for me. This is one of my weaknesses. It's like, I know what mine are. There are things I'm probably gonna have to work on till the day I die because we're human. And if we don't have things we're working on, then we're not really growing. So self-awareness is just being aware. So I love talking about self-awareness. It's the moment that you can see an emotion, just grab it and say, okay, I'm frustrated right now. I'm angry. You take so much power out of it and you're no longer engulfed in it. Like studies show this when you name it, like I am angry right now, or I am frustrated. That was my trigger and I am frustrated. And you're just naming it. That gives you the opportunity to not be so in it and take that minute to decide how you want to proceed, which brings us to self regulation. It's learning that, like I said, emotions aren't bad, they just are. And being careful with the stories we create and asking ourselves before reacting to a trigger, are the stories true? You might be saying, Jill, what are you talking about? Stories like books? What are you talking about? So, a story like, for example, someone always does that. They know it bothers me and they still do it. That's a story we're creating. Most times people aren't, sometimes they are, but most times they're not purposely trying to trigger you. So we have to be careful with the stories, or that person's never going to change. Jill, I'm not going to work on my reaction to them because they're always going to do this and I'm always going to be frustrated. That's a story that we play in our head and we like cement it in there. So self-regulation is being very careful. Even I use this term like selective amnesia. Sometimes we have to compartmentalize and say, just because this always was a situation we've had, if we kind of set that aside and kind of look at the situation fresh, we are going to react much better. So self-regulation is pausing and being intentional about what we do next. So again, if you look at that container, it's all shooken up. That's when we get upset or we get angry, we're all shooken up. And self-regulation is where, per the picture on the right, we pause and give the sediment a minute to clear so we can see clearly through and also see, this is key, how we want to react. So I love mantras. Some love them, some hate them. I think mantras and affirmations can be really powerful. And I think it's really applicable here. And, they can just be notes on a post it, they don't have to be mantras. I just call them self regulation mantras. So when we're triggered, you could choose one of these if you like them. Right now, I get to choose how I react. This is what Jill was talking about in the training. This is that moment where I get to choose how I react. Even just saying this mantra is going to be that break that gives you the minute to separate from the emotion and choose how you go forward. Could also say, I always get to choose how I react. And this might sound silly to you. And if you try it, it's going to force you to pause because you're saying this thing, whether it be in your head or out loud. One I really like is, I feel something that's really, really uncomfortable right now, and I have a choice what I do with that feeling. Because we always have a choice. We don't get to say, that person makes me. People without emotional intelligence say things like that. Oh, they make me so mad. They make me frustrated. Nobody can make you do anything. You choose how you react when a trigger comes through. So I really want to hit that home. So how to self-regulate? Like, sounds fine and good, Jill. We identify our triggers, then we have the self-regulation. Here's some ways that work. Take a quick walk. When you get that trigger, get up, change what you're looking at and walk around for a minute. That will kind of yank you out of your mindset and give you that second to pause. Manage your stress just in general. If you have high levels of stress and you just run high stress on a daily basis, self-regulation is, you're going to say, Jill, this is so hard. You're just, your ability. It's like, I don't know, when I'm tired, I don't have a whole lot of ability to like not eat the Oreos. I just when I'm tired, I just don't feel like I can have the willpower. So same thing here. If you're stressed, you're not going to be able to practice these things, I promise you. And you're going to be like, this feels so hard. So you can manage stress, some like a gratitude practice. There is science that shows that your stress level goes down if you have some sort of gratitude practice, which can be writing down 5 things you're grateful for or 3 things every day. Simple as that. It can actually be proven to help your stress. Maybe, like I say, gratitude practice or yoga or any other way. Maybe it's like doing a really hard exercise workout or going for a run or going for just a walk in the fresh air, sitting in the sun. Know what you can do to manage your own stress. And don't hate me when I say this, lowering your caffeine, because when, again, going back to those jars I have pictured, I told you you're going to see them a lot. When we have a lot of caffeine, we're living in that state of being shooken up, and we can't get that calm to be able to decide how we proceed saying these things. We just don't get that opportunity. And getting better sleep, all this kind of folds in. If we lower our caffeine, then we will probably get better sleep. I don't drink full caffeine anymore. I do half and that's really helped me make sure it doesn't affect my sleep. And so, limiting screens before bed can also disrupt your sleep. When you're lacking sleep, some even say it's like having 2 or 3 beers. It's the equivalent. If you get multiple nights of 6 hours of sleep, it's during the day, it's like you're operating having drank 2 or 3 beers. You're not going to do well with emotional intelligence if you're lacking sleep. And again, I like to just say when your willpower is low, when you're just feeling tired, the small problems feel insurmountable when you're tired. So I'm going to stress this. Take a walk, manage your stress somehow. Maybe consider lowering your caffeine, getting better sleep. Everything we've talked about is going to go better when you're feeling refreshed and have stepped away. I don't know if anyone's ever read this book. It's one of my very favorites. It's heavy. Tells a story about his life in a concentration camp. But he said in this book, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space lies our freedom and our power to choose our response. In our response lives our growth and happiness. And Viktor Frankl is who wrote the book, and he was able to say, this is happening and I get to choose what I do with that. They don't get to make me feel this way. I get to choose how I feel. Kind of gives you chills. So he said, between that stimulus and response, we get to choose. I mean, that's emotional intelligence right there. So I would be curious, if you liked what you heard and something resonated with you, if you can call to mind a behavior or something that triggers you. Remember, I mentioned getting interrupted. I hate getting, not so much like someone talking over me, but when I'm working on something and someone's like, hey, Jill, that just drives me nuts. Like I'm clearly working on something. So call to mind a trigger. I know it might make your blood pressure go up a little bit. And then think, how will you apply what you learned today to handle it better when this comes up? So I'll give you some things. Maybe it means getting a notebook out after this and writing down what triggers us. These are my triggers. And I love the comment. Does this mean I can tell my wife I should be able to? Yes, absolutely. Big fan of napping over here. So again, maybe it's taking a journal out or a piece of paper and identifying your triggers. Maybe it's identifying that mantra or post-it note thing that you're going to say when something triggers you. Keep it on your desk and have that moment, or something with self-regulation, saying, okay, when I get triggered, I'm going to tell the person, hang on, I'm going to take a spin around the room, or I'm going to walk around the block quick and come back to this conversation, because I know right after I'm triggered, that is not how I want to show up. And I can destroy trust that I've worked so hard to build through these trainings and otherwise. So I challenge you to think of one thing. And if anyone wants to put anything in the chat, you're welcome to. Sometimes when we say, this is what I'm going to work on, it prompts someone else to say, ooh, that's one thing I'd also like to work on. So I'm going to leave you with this thought. A cloudy mind looks like that. A clear mind looks like the picture on the right. And when we practice emotional intelligence, we are operating more in that right hand jar. We can actually see things more clearly. We don't get caught creating stories, and we just operate better. We build more trust. We have more effective management and better relationship with our team. So I hope you'll come back next week. We're going to talk about how the last week, how marvelous managers are time management role models. We're going to talk about setting boundaries. This is one of my favorite topics when it comes to managers. And as I promised, we're going to not wrap up a minute late here. It looks like it's 1:22 Mountain Time. So as we wrap up again, think of one thing you're going to work on. And I have an offer for you. I've put together 5 little videos on these 5 segments that we've done these last weeks. And if you liked what you heard and want to maybe take it with you and share it with your team, or just keep them on hand for a little refresher, I just made some videos. If you're interested in downloading those, you are welcome to. They are yours, free, just for attending. And I appreciate you, and I love connecting on LinkedIn. If anyone wants to reach out and share, thanks so much for spending your time with me today. Any questions?
I don't see any questions right now. I will, well, wait, maybe I do. One person asked, with others who we work with, who work for us, who are our clients, is it worthwhile to correct the suboptimal language use? For example, that person makes me feel livid, and showing the better ways of language or not our place.
Let's see. Let me just actually, I have the question brought up. Is it worthwhile to correct, for example? Oh, okay, correct it with that person.
Yeah, should they, if somebody uses that, a client of mine or somebody who works for us uses incorrect language, should we correct them?
Ooh, I love this question. So it's a tricky spot because, speaking of trust, you don't want to lose trust with whoever that person is. I'm assuming that's a key piece here. One thing I may recommend is asking a question saying, would you be willing to like open, remember that inviting in language I think we talked about in the feedback module? Would you be willing to my sharing something that may help when these feelings come up, that may help when you start feeling livid? People have a lot of trouble saying no when you invite them in so nicely and kindly with the language. Say, again, would you be willing to let me share something that I do when I start feeling a certain way? And they might say yeah, and say, sometimes I think, gosh, I really actually have control, and so some things I do is I step away. I don't create a story that they're trying to upset me. I don't know if that's helpful at all for the person that wrote the question. Kind of flows into giving feedback. It's like, would you be open to my sharing this? But if it's someone who works for you, I think that's more of a like, you have such a opportunity. I say, being a manager, you have a great responsibility and a great opportunity to like change someone's life. I see another one. What are the clues for whether someone can raise their EQ, such as employees versus lost cause? Ooh. Um, clues. Well, I guess I might need a little clarification on this. Like, what are you seeing from them? That might tell you that they're not going to be able to do this. Um, there's certain people that, oops, let's see if I scroll down. Okay, can EQ be learned? I'm an optimist and I believe yes. And if they don't want to, it's like anything. We can't change people. They have to want to change themselves. Um, I believe there's some people who aren't going to be open to it. So I think the big differentiators, if they're open to it and not being told they have to do it, then yes, I think everyone can change. If they're close to it and say this is never going to work, then yes, I think they may be, a lost cause. I do like to think that if everyone learns the right skills, and that's why I always try and keep things simple, like naming it. And also, something I'll insert here is, going back to that first question, is helping people understand that like emotions aren't bad. Like if you're just a hot-tempered person, that's not bad. It is ineffective with others and can be ineffective at work. So if that's who you are, like that's who you are. Would never try and change that. And that may not be effective here at work. I've had a lot of those conversations throughout my career with people saying, "Well, I'm just brutally honest." I say that I'd never try and change who you are. That's who you are. And at work, that may not be effective. So that would be a way, if we do have that kind of lost cause, saying, would you be open to some ways that you could be more effective? I don't know if that was helpful.
I don't see any other questions, and I really do like your answer on that one, Jill. I think that sometimes, especially if they work for us, is can I help? I want you to be successful, and I think sometimes you get in your own way. And let's talk about how you are coming across. You may not realize that this is the impression you're making on your colleagues or on your patient or your customers or whoever. So I think the ability to say, can I want you to be successful. I want you to knock it out of the park for me. I think there's some things you might want to polish a little bit. Yeah, I think it's a challenge. It's a challenge when somebody has a very, very strong personality, or they've been successful in being outspoken or whatever in their career.
Let's see, there's another one. Would you say emotional intelligence can go up a good amount just by reading and watching videos, or must we engage in courses, company exercises, time set aside where we're implementing certain schools' methodologies? Ooh, I love this question. 100%. If you are invested in, um, if you're invested in learning, then yes, you are going to get better. So if you it can go it just the so awareness, it's almost like self-awareness as part of emotional intelligence. If you're aware of, oh, like I never really thought to like write down my triggers, 100% yes. And I always say there's so many free resources out there. You could go on YouTube and watch less than 5-minute videos all day long. And yes, so I think what the rubber hits the road, are you going to implement what you learned? It's not going to just like happen if you commit to saying, I do kind of get a little jittery on caffeine. I don't know if that's helping my reactions. I am going to take action on this. Taking action is, I think, the key thing.
Um, Here's another one that says, do you or your company provide trainings of exercises, things to say and do with ourselves or employees that have been shown to increase EQ?
Let's see. You can Oh, yes, definitely. Sorry, I was misreading the question. So, I mentioned my company does provide like a longer emotional intelligence training that gets into like practicing and really elaborates on what we shared here. Um, One thing I really like and that I do in most of my training is phrasing and giving people a toolbox of actual things to say and actual things they can do to improve their emotional intelligence. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question.
There's in the webinar chat, Keith is asking, sounds like it's best to see if you can get the person asking the question to answer the question.
Um, I'm not sure what this is referring to. I don't know if you can give a little clarification, Keith. I don't know, or Janine, maybe it's me. It's
Yeah, no,
oftentimes
I,
me.
I, I agree. Keith, help us here.
And while
Okay.
he's doing that, I might actually, oh, it just seems like sometimes person asking, yes. So if you were, I do have to pop off here in just a minute, but if you were in the feedback training, um, oftentimes I say, when you have to share feedback with someone, you're like, I don't know how to fix the problem. That example I gave of like a high performing jerk, someone that's good at their job, but they're just a jerk to everyone else. Say, hey, this isn't working. Let's brainstorm some ideas because we can't stay here. We've got to get somewhere else. Would you be open to brainstorming some ideas? So maybe that's what Keith's talking about here. I think a lot of times the person that is having the struggle actually knows what they need to do, and getting them to suggest it gets the best buy-in. I love
Perfect.
that.
All right, we know we're tight on time. Harry, you had asked a question privately about accessing the last session. I cannot get an answer for you, but I've put my email into the chat. If you can send that message to me in email, I will try and get an answer or someone to answer you in the next couple of days or so.
Thank you so
Um,
much, everyone.
all right. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thanks again.
See you for part 5 next week.
Yes.